And we're live.
Welcome back to Why Blank Lost. And as you can see, it did not take very long for us to already be cracking up with our special guests. First of all, let me, of course, welcome my co-host, Jessica Lewis. Hello,
Hi.
Jessica. And our special guests for this postseason wrap-up, Dr. David Voce and FBI agent or fighter pilot Tiffany Seely. If you're just listening and have no idea what I'm talking about, just check the
Go
video.
with it.
Yeah.
Go. Yes, please. Yes. This is
just go
very
with it.
exciting. And I'm glad that you hit record, because if you didn't, I'm not sure what would have happened, because I think we would have just kept laughing. At least that
Yes.
kind of centered us a little bit. So thank you for that.
Yes.
I think what the viewers don't know, or the listeners, is that we have like a 30-minute introduction before we actually start recording, where we just laugh our asses off.
Right.
We say
And what
all
they
of
don't
the
know
things
is
that
that
we
I'm-
won't say.
We're
All very appropriate things.
Yes.
very
Of course,
appropriate.
Very.
Yes. Yes.
You can
All
catch
very
it on my
businesslike.
OnlyFans. I'm just kidding. I don't have OnlyFans.
Not this again.
Oh my gosh.
I'm just
Okay.
kidding. Just kidding.
So as everyone can tell, we have a somewhat lighter tone today than we did during the Why Blank One finale podcast.
Yes.
Also, this podcast, it should be twice as long as that podcast. So we're probably looking at 6 hours.
Oh, my
No,
word.
no,
Oh,
no.
Tiffany,
Anybody
it's
looking at
okay.
Tiffany's face, no, we're just joking. It will not be that long. But it could be. We could probably talk that long, but no.
We could.
So yes, and there's probably going to be a lighter tone for most of this. I know that there's a lot of very serious discussion still ongoing about the outcome, and we had a lot in the podcasts, and there are some serious questions here as well, but we're hoping to be able to laugh a little too as we put the season a little bit more in this rear view mirror.
I have a sneaking suspicion the laughing will come easily.
Yes, that's true.
But I am going to forewarn your listeners today. Listeners, hi, it's Tiffany. Listeners, just
They
in
can't
case
see
you
you,
didn't
Tiffany.
know,
Yeah,
I am
think we
going
could
to
tell.
be a good girl today. I'm going to listen, and I'm not going to disturb this podcast, not even once.
Yeah, okay.
Oh,
Because
Okay.
we have Tiffany has some haters on this podcast.
Yeah, but
Just
to
this
be
podcast?
fair, I was waiting. To be fair, on this podcast, we don't go through all the rules. We
Right.
don't go, so there's less of a structure for you to disrupt.
yes.
We don't have to worry about all the card houses falling down, like in the Survivor Challenge.
And we
Thank God.
forewarn everyone that it is going to follow a different structure when
Yes.
the two of you are with us. So I think
You warn them
they've
about us?
learned.
We get a warning. There's
Well,
like a
at
little
least
parental
one of
guidance
you.
warning that
Yeah,
pops
well,
up.
definitely that. Yes.
But I didn't get my Voce. I need a kiss. Ready? Give me a kiss. I didn't get my Voce kiss.
Oh, good.
Oh my word.
Lordy.
All right.
Lordy.
It's
Cheese
just
and
fun.
rice.
It's just fun.
Yes.
If you don't know what we're talking about, we have those like Brady Bunch squares, and you can touch each other
Yes.
fakely, and
Yeah.
we're just being
People
forget
just need
it.
to
The
watch
new
this
Survivor, the
podcast.
new Survivor guidelines are no touching, Tiffany.
right.
Yeah, just
Exactly.
That is
So
fair.
you know what?
That is fair.
Yes.
Forget I even said that.
Yeah. Someone did, because there was a problem with the podcast company, not RHAP, but the company that hosts the podcast. When our last one came out, more people went to video. And I did get some comments like, I've never watched you guys on video, and oh my God, it's a whole different experience.
Oh, look at
and
that.
Yeah.
Was it a better experience? Or
Yes,
For
yes,
sure.
a better experience. Now, imagine that with Tiffany and Voce added too.
Oh my word. Yes.
So again, is it better? Is it worse? That's up for you to decide.
Mhm.
Better.
yeah.
Better.
I do want to say before we get to listener questions, Well, first of all, everybody, happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas,
Mm-hmm.
have a good weekend, whatever.
That's the man.
Yes.
But I wanted to note something that has come up on Twitter, which is that, starting in the preseason, we said, even in our preview podcast, that it looked like Cassidy could be a Why Blank Lost listener because of some of her answers in the pregame interviews. And then we saw more of that in some of the things that she said during the game and in postgame interviews. And then a couple days ago, we had posted the link to the podcast on Twitter, and she responded and said, the amount of y'all's podcasts I listened to before playing, I can't believe it's finally my turn. I will cherish this even as you tell me every reason why I'm a loser.
Aww.
And so, first of all, not a loser.
No.
She's a winner in my book.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I will say I have, this is more of a guess. I've noticed James has liked and retweeted or reposted several of the things that we've said. So it would be pretty funny if both the person who many people have said should have won and the only juror who voted for her were both listeners.
Wow.
Look at that.
So
Look how that works.
We do also know, we know that there were a couple of RHAP, of other RHAP patrons on there. I have heard that there's at least one other person who listened and or was familiar with the rules. If anyone happens to know who they are and wants to say, but if not, that's fine too.
I may have. It's interesting how close the Survivor world is, but actually Jesse was supposed to be on season 41 with me, and the Reddit world is a little dark hole that has some good things to it. But when we got put on hold for Survivor 41, I actually I connected with Jesse over Reddit, so and knew that he was a fan of you guys as well. So so it was cool to actually see Jesse out there because I knew how disappointed he was because we were actually, I think we were supposed to be on the same. I think he was going to be on the or actually we were both on a Red Tribe on the original season 41.
Wow.
So, yeah.
I still can't imagine how that must feel to have been like, oh, you're going, and then no, you're not. Like,
would you like to ask me?
Well, but Cassidy was supposed to be on 41 also.
Yeah.
I know.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Like, this is crazy. There's so many people that were supposed to have competed at a different time.
Well, when we saw the preview, Tiffany and I texted Ellie right away because Ellie was actually at our finals. So 3 years ago.
Right.
So
and it's funny because I think so. Lindsay from 42 was supposed to be on 41, but Tiffany got that. So Lindsay from 42 that Lindsay number 1, we'll call her, was supposed to be on then she got put on hold. Then Lindsay
from 43
was supposed to be on 42, but she got bumped.
No, she got COVID.
She got COVID. And then Lindsay from 41 moved on to 42. And then Lindsay from 42 got moved on to 43. So
it's crazy.
Tiffany, you just started a whole row of dominoes there.
You know what? I'm responsible for every good player that's ever come through the door in the new era.
That's right. That's right.
Thank you very much. And I was not a listener. I didn't even know podcasts existed. Isn't that sad?
Yes, it is sad.
It is sad.
I'm not going to say it, but I will point it out. One of us sitting here that did know the rules.
Oh, sure. It
rhymes with moche.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
How far did like Jesse and James
and
if
Cassidy.
He listened and Cassidy?
Do we need to remind Tiffany that she got voted out the very next vote that she was eligible for?
Yeah. Oh, that is such a stupid thing to say because there was like 4 people in between me. You know what? I was eligible. They just didn't want me. I was eligible.
We're not eligible. No,
eligible. You know why we weren't eligible? Because we were winning. Because we were winning. We were winning. That makes you ineligible. Jerk.
Yes. And getting rid of me made you win so much more.
I missed you so much when you were in Ponderosa. I couldn't stop thinking of your glistening hair and your
which we can't see
shirtless body. He was good to look at on the island. I will give him that.
That makes one of us.
Oh, Voce, you told me you were in love with
my
me. That is so wrong.
gosh.
All right, you know what?
Yeah,
Don't
I'm
be
in
jealous.
love with you. That doesn't mean
You're just jealous because I'm fabulous.
Mhm.
I showed
All
you,
right.
didn't I? I showed you, didn't I? Look at me now.
Mhm.
Oh my.
Okay, moving
So-
on.
All right.
Speaking of the rules, which we were before we took a hard left there. A
hard left.
hard left. Oh, God. They come in a colorful version in poster form. At RHAPup.com/yxlostfeed. You can go there, scroll down, click on it, order it. You can also do the t-shirt, or you can get a rules checklist t-shirt. So go
Oh,
there.
that's new. I like the checklist shirt.
It's
You like
nice,
the
right?
checklist? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's the same as my mug. But I don't know that we
Nice.
could get mugs anymore. I'm special.
And it has it has Y-1 on the back of it, Voce. So it
Yes.
has all of the
Or
Yes.
on the front if you wear it backwards like
That's
I did
fair.
for the previous
Yes.
podcast.
You know what? All I want is a fakakta poster. I can't even get a
You
poster.
haven't gotten the poster yet? We will
Have you
have
sent me your address?
You know what? I'm looking at it. It's very lovely. It's okay. I don't need one.
No,
Nobody
I
needs to
need
give
your
me a fakakta
address.
poster.
Send
Let me give
your
it to you right
address.
now. I don't want your fakakta poster.
Oh,
I
my
don't
goodness.
want your fakakta poster.
Oh, goodness.
Well, for those of you who do want a fakakta poster, it's again at RHAPup.com/yxlostfeed.
I would give you my address, but I'm thinking saying it out loud on
No,
No,
podcast.
don't do that.
Make sure you send it in like 5 separate texts too, because it's so much more fun that
Here we
way.
go. Here we go. Blow Tiffany up for her spam texting abilities. I'm a
Listen.
spam
We're blowing
texter.
up our phone. Yes.
Yes, because it was happening right before we started because
Yes.
Tiffany was trying to schedule this a little bit earlier. And then my phone was sitting on the counter and it just kept buzzing every 3 seconds. And I was like,
Again,
that's Tiffany.
Yeah.
How long has this been scheduled for?
A
For
long time.
A couple weeks.
The
at
time,
least. Yeah. A few
and
weeks.
then
Yeah.
Tiffany, let's do it earlier. Let's do it earlier. Like 10 minutes before we start.
Listen, mister, I was in the shower as the podcast was rolling. Okay. Are you on?
1
Yes,
minute.
I'm on, Voce. Where are you? Oh, shoot. I'm in the shower. Uh-huh.
Well, he
But
tried
you know
to
what?
take
Isn't
the
it nice how he
computer in
does
the
that? You all
shower
saw
and
that, right?
stuff.
I was here prompt and he was in the shower.
Yeah. He's a doctor. You got to have patience.
That's
Ba-ding-ching.
That was a good one. I might give you some of my good jokes later. I might have said them already, though. So we
yeah,
don't want to ruin them.
probably.
Okay.
All right, let's
Let's get to these questions.
let's get into the questions. The first one, which is from Ryan, asked about all the people who actually it leads kind of nicely in from our prior discussion, because he said before the season started, I assessed that the season had a lot of super fans of people who really understand the game. For example, Cassidy listens to all the Why Blank Lost podcasts. Owen had years worth of Reddit posts and many other similar things. He continued, I was afraid that having too many super fans meant the season could lead to it feeling too game body. And so it, shortening it a little bit here, in that situation, the best can dominate a season like the way Dom and Wendell did, and it sometimes supposedly can make for boring TV. Usually the most entertaining part of the season is the power struggle, and we haven't seen that since David versus Goliath. In most seasons, it felt like a large alliance kind of peeled off pieces like an onion. Is there a way that future players can have smart gameplay while also playing in a way that is entertaining? So there's a lot to unpack.
There is a lot there.
So let me start.
Tiffany's like, just put me on the show.
Just cast me back on there. Hello.
Yes, you don't have to worry about a game bot.
I mean, that was a little bit of a low blow, but I'm going to let it go.
Yeah. So while I understand that people do worry about game bots, I don't consider that to be a big problem. People can be big fans and podcast listeners and RHAP patrons and Redditors and everything else and still have very different personalities.
Oh,
Just
sure.
look at Lindsay, Cassidy,
Mm,
Owen, Voce, Jesse, just as examples. But yes, we have discussed before that the point of going on Survivor, at least as far as we are concerned, is to win. But sometimes doing the smart thing doesn't necessarily make for compelling TV.
Right.
And I remember people yelling at Ghost Island about that exact reason, not to mention a bunch of other seasons. But if you're a player, you should be there to play. Let the producers figure out how to make it look good, or hide the whole thing and not tell anyone.
Sure.
But be fun in confessionals, but play to win the rest of it. I mean, if you play by being fun, that's fine too. But don't just act out in order to make good TV.
Yeah, if your goal is to be on a television show, then this is not the show to be on. It's like this. I mean, you do have an opportunity to speak to the listeners and to the viewers in your confessional. So that's a very fair point. But you really need to be focused on the game so much so that you forget that the cameras are there, because that's what is the most significant part, is what's happening around you, the immediacy of it, and the game itself. Not, I need to entertain the cameras and the people watching. You should really forget they're there and then say something really inappropriate and then die when you realize that you've done it.
And then realize that it's when you get home, you're like, did I say that? Because I remember saying that. And I was not eating, so it was probably not proper. But from what I'm hearing from what you just said, and I'll talk to this a little bit, because I feel like there is a bit of it where when you have people who are super in the know, okay, how to play this game or how to best play this game. And let's not talk about the other side of it, the other factor where it's a lot of it is luck too. Mm-hmm. And, so there's just so much you can do even with knowing what and how to play the game, right? You can be exactly perfect.
Kind of like Voce was unlucky enough to be on your tribe.
Oh God, it's never going to end.
Mm-hmm.
It's never going to end.
Thank you, David. Thank you, David. You're right.
But Voce, Voce, who do you love?
I love David Bloomberg.
I was going to say, it's definitely David Bloomberg.
I'll jump in here and say one thing. I think that what people can get confused by is it's casting's responsibility to cast people that are good, that have good personalities, and that are engaging with the audience. And it's okay if they're knowledgeable of the game, but they need to be, characters, and that's characters that can play with a game body type of knowledge. Mm-hmm. I think casting largely has kind of changed and has done a decent job in terms of realizing, like, you can't just get people that just know the game and know how to play the game. You've got to have people that love the game and want to play hard, but then also have a personality that shows up on screen. And I think that's hard for people to choose, but I think that's casting's job, is to be like, here's a person that just pops on screen that will, do, say inappropriate things, or they may have an idea of the game they want to play and it completely falls apart because they're a lunatic. But that's I think
that
kind of
personal
between what
that felt personal.
You didn't know how to play the game, Tiffany. I was not talking about you.
Listen,
you had zero clue how to play this game.
Listen,
good God.
For somebody who had no clue how to play this game, I made it to jury, but we won't even go there.
By pure
you just
luck.
did.
Right, we just did that. Listen,
but no,
here's what I think.
No, wait, let's just talk about this. Well,
no.
Go ahead, you talk.
No. He was just messing with you more. Go ahead.
Go.
Okay, so what I was going to say is that I think that what people forget is it's largely impossible to even go out there and pretend that you're going to be a certain way, because you fall apart so quickly after having been starved and the shock of everything, that even when you think you're going to, there's Luca. Luca's Voce's doggy dog. And hi, Luca. And I think that you think you're going to go out there and play a certain game, or you think you're super competitive, but when you get out there and you're just, everything about you just kind of falls apart because you're not used to that environment. I think it's very hard to be acting. So people are really, that's the part that you really can't cast for, because you don't know what these people are going to fall, like what's going to happen to them once they're under, all of those all of the different things that are going to happen to them, you don't know how they're going to react. And I think that's what casting says. Well, we know that this person is somewhat like this, but it's a crapshoot of what's going to happen once they get out there.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
I think that's the entertainment factor.
And just for people that are listening, because I was listening to these podcasts that are trying to get on the show, I think that's the key thing to keep in mind is that they're not trying to cast people that are game body and everything. They want to cast people that can tell a story and it can pop on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're going through that process, that's the thing to keep in mind is that they want personality.
Yeah.
And like what you said, and like the way I went into the game and the way that, Cassidy went into the game is they're there to play the game and play the game to win. But then when you're going through casting, it's like having that personality that can tell a story and it can be engaging. So, and I think largely that's what casting wants is they want people that are going to come in that are going to play hard, but they're going to have this personality. And I think when it comes across as a game body season, I think that comes across because there's sometimes a lack of personality. Maybe I'm wrong in saying that, but I think that it's I think that maybe they expected people to kind of react differently than the way they're actually playing.
I also think that production, even after more than 2 decades, still does not know how to show a social game.
Yeah.
We saw that going back to Island of the Idols with Tommy's win. We saw that with this season. I mean, Cassidy was playing an under the radar game. Gabler was playing an under the radar game. What did we know about their games? Not a whole lot.
Right.
And so and I can go Erica, what did we see of Erica? Who, what? And
you hear about these people,
right?
Commentaries, confessionals, but then it's not matching up with what we're seeing on screen.
Right.
And I think that's something they deal with because I think they don't want to give away too much of it. And if they give away too much of the social part, then people can guess what's going to happen in the next episode or what's going to happen down the road. So they can't figure out how to do that without giving it away. And so they leave it out.
Now. They should by now.
And you know what?
Talent. You can do it with multiple people.
Yeah.
So that it doesn't.
I agree.
It's not 100% obvious.
Yeah.
But I'll also jump in and say that I think the problem, and not in a negative way, but I told you guys beforehand, like I actually watch a season as a very casual viewer. Sometimes, while I was eating dinner or in the background, and this is the first time I've done that, and I was confused half the season, and partly because the twists that were, and I didn't think that it was particularly like, a twist heavy season in terms of, they went to the islands, but it wasn't like Shipwreck Island or whatever. But I had no idea who had the bracelets, who was doing what with the, little pictures with the beads. I was not following that. I was like, because I was just casually watching. So I had no idea what was going on. And instead of just showing them interacting, because I think that they think that that's a little more boring, instead of relying on the casting that they've done, they're showing all of this, forced dialogue.
Yes, the
not
added components get more time.
Yeah. And I think one of the things I remember when Xander had the idol and we were trying to figure out all the idol, we were spending so much time talking about the idol and how it worked and everything instead of actual relationships. And instead
that
of
is 100% true.
It takes away from that natural. You have a cast, you have crazy Tiffany over there, that's just like making a ruckus everywhere, and yet you're focused on the saying how the idol works or the bracelet and all this stuff. So I think that's one of the problems in terms of when we talk about showing a social game is you've chewed up so much time with all these added twists.
Yes,
and also didn't show and also don't show relationships. Like I think coming out of our season, people wouldn't have really known that Voce and I were super close, and even though it was like such a quick 2 days, 3 days, we were really close. We may not have talked strategy, but they could have showed that we were close. They didn't show that Evie and I were as close as we were. They made it look like Evie and Liana were much closer. And it's like it's just what works out for their edit and who wins in the end.
They
and
cut
what
a whole relationship out with me.
They
and
cut
Adam.
the whole, and I think that's what people like the most.
They've never even shown me. Can you believe it?
It's the weirdest thing. It's the weirdest thing. And you know what? The truth is, what do people want to see? They would probably love a season of outtakes. They would love a season of I mean, this would be epic if they showed like outtakes and real relationship stuff and just regular life on the island. Like You don't see that much anymore. And
no, that's very old school Survivor.
It's very old school Survivor, but that's what I loved. I loved that Survivor. That's the Survivor I knew. It was a social game. Now it's become a little bit more chessboard, and you're going to do this, then we're going to throw a twist in, and a little bit more luck, less relying on social. So it's I think they're just really trying to find their way here. And once again, sometimes what happens is people try to reinvent a wheel when the wheel's not broken. And
well, I think, and an example of this is, I think back to when the votes were, a surprise or whatever, and they may flash back to like a conversation that people had where they were, ironing out all the details, like how did you get to this vote?
Right.
Whereas like in this season, like when early on when Cody finally got his beads, and it like showed a flashback during the votes of like, oh, I got my beads, and it was like, I remember casually watching that and being like, I don't really know what that was, but okay, he got the beads filled. Instead of focusing on how Cody used his social game to get someone to vote on his side, you're focusing on, oh, I got this advantage, and this advantage is how I pulled this off.
I mean, it's bad when you have to have Owen literally sit there and list off everything so that they can put it on the screen. Now, props to Owen for getting most of that information. But if you've got to list it all off like that, you have too many. But I do want to circle back, Tiffany, to something you said about how you're stripped down, you can't pretend, because one of the rules, Rule 5, is, of course, pretend to be nice. And there still is that aspect. I mean, we saw that in the game, even if you don't like someone, even if you, we saw Ryan trying to do it. He was up for an acting award, and of course, didn't do a very good job. We saw Carla crying several times, and maybe she'd have convinced people if other people hadn't totally thrown her right under the bus immediately afterwards. It also talks about keeping your politics and controversial beliefs to yourself, which I have to believe our winner did this season, because I think that there are several people who probably would not have voted for him at the end if they had known some of his political.
I'll disagree with you, Bloomberg. I don't think that he hit any of that.
You don't think so?
No, I think I mean, he may not have been overtly like, I believe this and I view this, but everyone out there, Brad on our season was very, very super conservative, and everyone knew that, and everyone respected him and loved him for who he is. But I think just the conversations that you have out there when the cameras are down at night, you get to know people. You get to know their backgrounds, their beliefs, their family, their faith, their lack of faith, whatever it is. And I think that comes out. I will also say that I think that by and large, there are some, I think, casting picks people that have short fuses, that have, tendencies to create a ruckus, Tiffany. And so, those type of
I'm
people.
a freaking pleasure. I don't know why you think I'm a ruckus. You're the only one that would say that from our whole cast, just so you know.
But no, but like, so, they choose those people that are not going to be able to pretend as well.
Right.
But I think that, I think largely, I think one of the things that you'll see is that I think one of the reasons why Survivor actually can be boring in the modern season with game body is because people know they have to be nice. And so there's largely less eruptions. Even I'll say, like, Tiffany and Abraham, who are good now, in the beginning of our season, they had a little bit of a ruffle, but everyone just kind of kept it on the down low. Nothing kind of erupted out. And I think that's because everyone knows you can't, when Tiffany fucked up the balance beam, I wasn't like,
Did you hear that
what
first?
were you doing on the beam?
No, you weren't. You just like straight out was like, oh, that was horrible, and she's a bleeding artery and needs to go. And we know where that got Voce.
But and I think that's one thing where I'll kind of backtrack and say the game bodiness is unfortunate, because you miss those like amazing interactions of Brandon Hance just erupting. I won't say that's an amazing interaction. It was entertaining
But you're saying exactly that, Voce, that I didn't know that stuff. So I was just myself running around with an idea that somebody was coming after me and doing everything probably the wrong way, but still got my way at the end.
You certainly did
that
provide
proves
entertainment in that in that
That's
moment.
right.
Yes.
That proves
Yeah.
that if you don't know exactly everything that's going on, that was authentic. That was me like definitely being like, what the hell is happening here? Like I really didn't understand some of the stuff that was going on. Either did production. And at the end of the day, well, that's the truth. At the end of the day, some people didn't know what worked how. And I certainly never saw that before. And it didn't make sense to me. And so in regular life, if I'm at a job and somebody changes something on me all of a sudden, I'm used to seeing it one way and all of a sudden it's going another way. Tiffany's going to be walking down that hallway saying, what is happening? Right. So, but if you're very cognizant of the rules and trying to be like PC and not ruffle any feathers, like I still would say to this day, I would go out and play a little differently now, obviously, but not that differently because I am who I am and I know I won't be able to shut my mouth. But at the same token, I still think
she's aware.
Yeah. Listen, I'm very aware, and at least I there's one thing about me, and that is I'm super authentic, and I think that authenticity is really important for relationship building because people see through that shit. So that to me is a very big thing. Like there are just people that you watch on screen, and you're like, this guy's a jerk. Like, and you just know that he's a real jerk in real life. Like. It just feels that way and it looks like that. And if it looks like it and walks like it, it's probably it. And that is what the difference is. Like, so you knew that, you know, people are like, I don't like this woman. She's like this mom from Long Island. And then if you read all the comments of after I left, they're like, oh my God, she was so not like they actually saw through it and actually saw who I was. And so I think it's very hard to hide your authentic side. And if you are trying to be game body, you're going to really end up like coming off not authentic. And so it's a catch-22 in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you have to be authentic. You will get stripped down to be yourself, but there still are places where you can pretend. For
sure. Rein it in.
It is funny, and I realize we're still on like the first question, but it is funny that you had all those issues figuring out what the advantages and stuff said, and now moved to this season, and they also had problems, but they thought they could pull the wool over Gabler's eyes and tell him, oh, no, it's not what your actual clue says, you know? And so I do wonder if any of that came to them from watching you be so confused.
Well,
you're a trendsetter, Tiffany.
Then Gabler owes me some money.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
he doesn't have any left. He donated all.
Yeah, he donated it all.
That even goes back to Game Changers with Sari. You know, when she thought, I think it was, with the advantage where she thought she could play it and it wasn't. And I think that, I mean, maybe that's even, I mean, kind of when, you know, advantages started going, you know, haywire. You know, I mean, Sari's the perfect example of, you know, advantage getting. But, you know, back when she tried to play that, you know, just not, there's so many rules with everything. And again, that goes back to the point of like, you're spending so much screen time talking about the
what's happening,
all the little bullet points. You know, literally that whole dialogue that you just alluded to between Gabler and Ellie. You know, that was probably 5 minutes of screen time that was talking about an advantage in the wording of it, right?
Right, and we've got a 42-minute show. Yeah, that
I think it was more than 5 minutes with everything totaled up.
And it was kind of cool to see how much Ellie failed at that and thought she succeeded, but I still think that, you know, it was artificially created and it didn't need to be.
I do think that is something that needs to stop because even in my season with the legacy advantage, they spent a significant amount of time in my confessionals making me bring it with me to the confessional so then they could have me look at it and try to like interpret how they had designed it and what it meant, and there's lines on the back and numbers, which means I'm supposed to be like passing it around to people. I'm like, no, I'm keeping it. And they were getting frustrated because I wasn't playing into their plan for this legacy advantage. I'm like, no, it's going to be mine until either I get voted out or day 36 and that's it. And so this is why I feel like they do push too much, where they want these things to happen. And so they don't let things happen organically. They put something in the game and they force it to occur by putting it in the water well, for example, like, oh my gosh, now everyone's going to know that this exists and someone's going to have to do something about it. And to me, that just takes the naturalness out. people want to play the game. People want to socialize and they want to scheme and they want to plot. They want to do all of these things. They don't want to be worried about things that are outside of their control, that are being controlled by production. And so I totally agree with that assessment.
And the other thing is, the big problem to me, and I admit that I'm completely biased here because, you know, as you know, and listeners, viewers may know, my job used to be writing and interpreting rules. Okay, that is what I did.
Sorry, the dog is amazing.
And so every time I see a new advantage come out and I read the wording on it and it's crap, I'm like, couldn't you have got someone who understands the English language better? Get a lawyer. Get me. I don't care. Get someone. Run these by me. I will do it for free. I am telling you, Survivor production. I will do it. I will read it over for free and make sure it says what you think it says. Because that used to be my job. There are laws on the books in this state that I read over and I said, that does not do what you think it does. You need to redo it. Okay.
It's such a valid point because it's you know, it's the same thing as when I teach my students, you know, grammar rules. Like you say, I'm going to eat grandma, or I'm going to eat grandma. Right. It's very different when you take the comma out of there.
Comma there. Yeah.
So, you know, and then when you have a bunch of people like us who go out there and we interpret things that we know every little word matters. You know, you got people looking on
bull. You had no idea how to read about anything. You couldn't understand anything out there. You see. No. Do you want to start? Do you want to start? You thought you won the tarp, and then someone, I think it was Liana, had to tell you you didn't win that.
I still think I won the tarp. It was so damn confusing. I won that tarp. Whatever. I won it.
Anyway.
Here's the point. The point is, when you have to, like Jess said, when you have to then make sure that what you're reading is what you're reading, and then you're asked questions in confessional where they're like, or they put the beware advantage in the fire where I found it in front of Liana and Evie, and I can't hide it now. Now everybody now it takes away the fun of me really trying to go on this night sneak because 2 people out of the 3 already know it. So that is annoying because it feels weird for us as players because it's like, and I said that in my confessional. Let me be clear. I said I would never have shared this with anybody. This would have been my secret. But it wasn't designed for it to be my secret. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been right in the fire where Liana just happened to miss it and Evie just didn't get there in time. And there I was. And I was like, what the hell is that?
So you should have just kicked it into the fire.
Right, exactly. I should have just kicked it in. But
which is actually a question we will get to later. Maybe. Because that was question 1, and we're
keep it moving.
In. So let's keep it moving. How about start it moving?
Start it moving.
All right. Well, this is another complicated one. But so there's a question from Mike, who asks, "Do we need a new Appendix C regarding Final Four immunity challenge and firemaking?"
No.
And hold on. I mean, that's the right answer. But
thank you.
And he attached a chart showing the results for season 35 to 43. See, this is the type of people who listen and watch here. They attach charts. These are my
I love the
here.
charts.
Yes. There were 2 winners who won Final Four immunity, 3 winners who were brought along by the immunity winner, and now 5 winners who won firemaking. He also noted only men have won Final Four firemaking, while 5 women have lost. Only men have won firemaking.
Interesting.
Now, to jump on what Jessica said, no, we're not going to add an Appendix C because then we'd have to change the posters and the shirts and all that stuff. But
no, we're just going to keep telling CBS Survivor to get rid of firemaking.
Yes. But aside from that, it really is all already in rule number 7, which is how to deal with idols, rules, advantages, etc. But yes, it is obviously, well, at least to us, obviously problematic that only men have won firemaking since it became a forced part of the game. And it's something Jeff Probst and production really should be looking at, but apparently they put blinders on for that.
Although I'll step in and say, did that chart include My dog's attacking me. Did that chart include how many women have actually played the firemaking challenge?
5. That's what I was saying. 5 lost.
No,
So 5 played and lost.
5 women have.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, I didn't realize it was that. I didn't realize
That's
that many
because I
women
wasn't out there playing for fire. Well, you know I would have won that, right,
Yeah.
Jess?
So
Jess?
Totally.
Angela,
Yes.
Cara, Lauren,
Oh wow. Okay.
Sarah, Heather.
Okay.
Heather came really close. That must have been my computer talks. My
Okay.
computer's not working. I don't know why it's talking. Heather came really close. I think there was some like anti-fire retardant on that stuff or
Well,
whatever. It was
But I think
ridiculous.
I think the larger thing here is that I think everyone unanimously agrees. Like, why in the world do we still have this?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the thing. Until this season, other than Edge of Extinction, of course, firemaking was not thought of as a factor in determining the winner, nor should it ever be.
No,
No.
it should not be.
You know, and this, you know, of course, Jessica and I mentioned this in the previous podcast, but the fact that jurors even mentioned it this season, to my mind, puts a red mark on the season overall.
Yeah.
Well,
You know,
I'll also say you don't know. Sometimes production says, you know, they vet the questions that are asked.
Oh yes, they do. But also the reason for picking your winner, that came from them. That didn't. I mean, I know that there was questions about firemaking, but even if they vetted the questions, they're not telling people what to ask. So that means that somebody said to them, "I would like to talk about firemaking," and maybe they talked through it. I don't even think it should have been addressed. It should have never even been asked because it shouldn't matter.
The fact that Cassidy was getting, you know, any kind of pushback that she didn't go firemaking, like seriously.
She had already won.
She had already won her own immunity, fair and square.
So I just posted a TikTok of this. In that immunity challenge, Jeff said 3 times.
Yeah.
You win this challenge, you're in the final 3.
Yeah.
Okay? He didn't say you win this challenge and then you
gotta
put
prove
aside
yourself.
and then you got to prove yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of the 5 winners who also won firemaking, only Chris really needed to do so because he was literally told by the jury on Edge of Extinction that he had to. And Gabler was forced to do firemaking by Cassidy. And then the jury used it as one of the excuses to give him the win. Ben, Wendell, Tony, they were always winning no matter how they got to the end. The fact that they made fire, nothing to do with it. It just shows people were trying to get them out is what it shows.
Yeah. Right. But I also
still
feel like there should be a little asterisk there too, because but for firemaking, those people might not have won because they might have been voted out.
They might have, or they might have convinced people to let them stay anyway. That's the thing. We don't know. Some people have been telling me.
Ben is a perfect example.
Right.
Of someone who would not have made it to the final 3, but for the introduction of firemaking, and we would have had a Chrissy winner. And so, you know, that, and not that I want to speak ill of Ben, but that was where the trajectory of his game was going. And to have firemaking step in and then take that away from Chrissy because suddenly there was a change in the game, I think is unfair to her. I'm not trying to discount his win, but this is the type of concern that we would have for firemaking is that it shifts the purpose of the game. It's a social game. It's supposed to be about the relationships you make. It's not supposed to be who can make fire faster. That's never what the game was supposed to be about.
This goes back to the first point that we talked about how it's focusing on, you know, the production force ins and outs. So just like, you know, the crazy idols, the bracelets, whatever, this is now focusing on, you know, this firemaking. It's not focused on the relationships, on the scheming and plotting that was done. It's focused on, oh, you were able to make a fire to save yourself. Right. And I'm not saying some of the advantages and everything can be fun or whatever, but I think, again, this is another one where if you have a jury that's talking about this production introduced, you know,
factor
twist, then why?
Right.
Yeah. I just think if you're social and you played an incredible social game and people are sitting on the jury and they love you, regardless, you're gonna win the game. If
Right.
they love you, you're going to win the game. If they're pissed
Mhm.
at you and they hate you and they think you're an awful person, you're probably not going to win. I don't care what
Yeah.
you do. I mean, sitting there in the jury, knowing what it feels like as that person, like looking at these people,
Right.
like I knew who I would be like, there's no way that person's like not even deserving of it. Like it's just,
Mhm.
it's human nature. They know
Yeah.
this. They
Right.
know this. You can't not go into it sitting on the jury not thinking that way because you're human, and that's how humans
Right.
Yes.
that's how we behave. So you are loved, and then all of a sudden somebody's making fire, and you're like, oh, you made a fire, oh my god, you win.
Yeah.
That's annoying.
No, I
If
know.
you
Yeah.
played your heart out.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think my advice here is anyone who's going to play, make sure you practice your fire making,
And
but
be nice.
you shouldn't pretend to be nice, but you shouldn't need
Pretend
it,
to be nice. You could be nice.
to win the game unless you're such a big threat that's how the other players are trying to take you out, like Jesse.
Right.
If you play a good game, then you need to be able to make fire.
Right.
Unfortunately, that's the way it is, or win a challenge. Now, staying on fire making, Glenna asked, could the Final Four fire making challenge be improved by having it at the beach and not in view of the jury? Alternatively, would allowing the jury to see the immunity challenges give more weight and respect to winning these challenges? Now, I know Jessica has opinions on this, but I would say Final Four fire making can only be improved one way, and that is removing it from the game.
Mhm.
I will somewhat quote Ripley from Aliens: nuke the entire fire making from orbit. It's the only way to be sure. Now, that aside, it would be improved in terms of making the jury less invested in it if they didn't see it happening. But that's not what Jeff wants. So it'll never happen. He wants it because he loves the shots of the jurors on edge. What's going to happen? Oh my gosh. Reacting to every flicker. That's what he wants. So fine. Well, not fine, but that, it's never going to happen. But on the reverse side, for immunity challenges, as I said, Jessica, I'll hand it to you in a moment. But my thought is it would put more emphasis where it shouldn't be. Because just like with advantages, challenge wins are nice. They can save you. They are certainly a big part of the game.
Mhm.
But by showing it to the jury, it would further emphasize that aspect instead of what they should really be voting on, which is what we've just been discussing. Who
Right.
played the best overall game? And for that, we really need to give the jury full live feeds. Take it away, Jessica.
I fully agree with that. Full live feeds. And there's kind of two parts to this, right? Not only live feeds from just every day on the beach, socializing interactions, things that people can see happening. Put a camera by the water well. That's where a lot of conversations take place, right?
Right.
So then that way the jury can be up and in the know of who's doing what and who's actually interacting and having these
Correct.
conversations. But also with the challenges, not that I think that they are deserving necessarily of that same type of focus. However, there are things that happen in the challenge that you don't know about until you actually watch it. And my season is a perfect example of when Adam was actually making decisions during the challenges to try to stop David from winning the challenge by one, helping Ken in a challenge, and in the last challenge, actually stopping, and because he didn't want his to fall over. And so it wasn't, I'm going to keep building mine higher, I'm just going to beat that guy. And those are the types of things that show he's not just desirous of winning the challenge, he's desirous of beating a particular person who is potentially going to win this game. And so I think in those moments it becomes significant because the jurors don't know any of those things happened. And that, I think, speaks volumes of how good a player can be perceived. But if you don't see it, we don't know it. And so suddenly everything that happens in tribal becomes intensified because that's what we see. And sometimes Jeff doesn't even ask about the challenges. So someone walks in with an immunity necklace and we're like, oh, what happened? And it never even gets addressed. So we're left in the dark with a lot of things. It's all focused on what Jeff wants to talk about.
I mean, I would, if I were Adam in that case, I would make a point to bring it up somehow.
I'll say I 100,000% disagree with you, Jess, on this.
Oh, 100,000%.
100,000.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of percent.
Because it is a lot of percent. But here's the thing. I think
you wouldn't think a math guy would be able to do that, but
100,000%.
But so okay, be quiet, Tiffany. Oh my goodness. No, my reason for this is that I do agree that Jeff will direct some of the questions and everything. But I think it's up to you to direct to narrate your story, whether that story is correct or whether it's false. Like you can, backstab and treat someone, influence them to do something and then completely deny it in front of the jury to try and, persuade them a different way. I think that's part of the game, is being able to persuade the jury to say, that you were responsible for doing something, and it's your word.
But here's the other side of that I think is frustrating for jurors, is that when people are then voted out and they come to Ponderosa, they start filling in those gaps that you don't know, and that person could be giving you misinformation. They're
from their perspective.
Which might lead to a question in a little while here.
So this is why it's this weird balance that I think needs to exist, where people should be able to have that information, but then also if someone wants to influence their decision, they should be influenced on all of the information, not just
or you sequester the jury.
Yes,
the jury doesn't hang out together.
Which would be horrible. That would be horrible.
It would be horrible, but if you think about it, nobody's influenced from each other's feelings.
Yeah, I agree.
You go, you get voted off. You go to Ponderosa. You have your own experiences. Ponderosa for tribal. You go together. You go back. You have it's just a few nights anyway. Those last 3 nights or whatever it is. And I guess I don't know. It's if you think about it that way, and you go in not having had any other interaction with anybody else who's pissed at whoever's pissed at whoever, right? And you go evaluate from your own standpoint, and then you go sit down and vote. You might have a different outcome in that case. But that would be horrible for us and anybody who's ever played. Sitting in Ponderosa after that, that's brutal.
The whole thing is definitely hard. I mean, I'm someone I speak to juries for my profession, and what we always tell them is they can't deliberate until everything is done. So they're not allowed to go and deliberate until all of the proof has been presented and all of the evidence is before them. And then they're allowed to go and deliberate. And then it is a full picture, and that's what they're actually discussing, not bits and pieces as they move along.
Which is what happens in Ponderosa.
And that's exactly, so it makes it very, very hard, because people are coming in and telling you things and you're like, that really happened? And it might not have really happened. And you don't know that. And you can't ask. You can attempt to on the final jury questions,
but you'll never get that story till 3 weeks after the season's done, and you're all coming home and talking to each other, and you're going, what the hell did I vote for that person for? What was I thinking? Right? It's not until you get home you really start to know who these people are from a whole different set of classes.
Yeah.
And that's the game, though. That's the game.
Game. Yeah. I mean, exactly. All right. So moving to the next question, which is from Dan. This is specifically for Tiffany and Voce, although I think I already know how you're going to answer it. Had you been in Cassidy's position, would you have kept the necklace or cracked under the pressure and gone to fire against Jesse?
Kept the necklace. No way would I have gone to fire. In that position, I need the money. Sorry. I'm not gonna, I would lose my mind if I knew that I had that necklace on and I thought that I needed to listen. I proved myself. I'm sitting in the final three. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. I'm not, and I am not taking off my necklace for nobody. I'm sitting in that spot, and that is it. Period.
I disagree. If I felt in that situation that I could make fire, and I was confident that I was the best fire maker there, and Jesse was the one that was going to win. Yeah. And in that instance, I would say, well, why, second place versus fourth place? I'm going to try and do it. If I knew Jesse was going to win. Yeah.
If you thought you would have, and that's the one thing.
Well, it's me who can make fire easily versus Tiffany, who's a little dud that can't even strike.
Okay. So Voce's being particularly mean this evening because he's being a jerk.
Dud.
But the truth is that I started fire for our whole tribe. But we won't even talk about that, Voce, right? Who started the fire? Who started the fire?
How would he know? You got rid of him.
He was there. There. I started the fire. Who started the fire?
I was there, but here's the thing.
Who started the fire? Who started the fire?
Tiffany was like, why are all the men trying to start the fire? Let me start the fire. And so then Tiffany hacks at it for like 2 hours until she starts the fire. And is like, look, I started the fire.
He's such a liar. He's such a liar. Xander was hacking at it.
So the point is, yes.
That's a liar.
And this is one thing that Jessica and I did talk about. The one instance where I would say, yes, you should jump in, is if you're in a situation where you
Where you know
have
you're gonna
someone like
lose.
Jesse who is obviously going to win otherwise,
Yeah.
and you are the best fireman.
Yeah.
But in this
Fine.
case,
that
right.
has to be the perfect stars align.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
the perfect
Exactly.
stars align, maybe. If I know I'm going to be fourth versus like, if I know I'm not going to win versus kicking his butt in fire, then okay, I can
Yeah.
see that. If I know I'm not going to win, but that has to be like 100%. I know I'm not going to win. And yes,
Right.
with Jesse there, you know that that's going to happen, right?
Right.
But what are the chances that it's going to be like that every single time? It was this
Right.
time, but you know,
Right,
I
it's
don't
hard.
know.
It's hard. All right, the next one
Wait,
up.
was Cassidy? Did she say she was good at fire?
No, she said she was not good at fire.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
And
Then
as
it
a matter of
wasn't
fact,
even-
that's why Jesse went up to her and said, "You should make fire against me." I
Yeah,
really
that was
think you
great.
should," because he knew she was the only one he had a chance to beat.
Yeah.
Mm.
So,
Wait,
She saw right through that, though. I
yeah,
mean,
she
that was
saw
like
through
a
it.
Hail Mary.
Owen definitely would have beat Jesse.
not definitely. I think Owen had a better chance than her. I mean, given where his fire was when Gabler won, I mean, but again, Gabler also won it in record time, so it's hard to say. But Jesse's fire was not exactly tall and burning bright. Yeah, burning. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, he was super nervous. But
yeah.
Yeah, I saw him fumbling, and that was nerves, man. I was like, he cracked. I mean, that was rough.
Well, and he had Gabler. I mean, like I said, when you're up against someone who sets a new record, you know,
like, yeah, that was ridiculous. It was like 1, 2, 3, it's over, and now we're sitting down. Yeah, it was crazy.
All right, the next one is I think I know your answers, but I didn't this time. From Samantha, considering what we saw of the game in Final Tribal Council, who of you two would you have voted for to win? Or who would you two have voted for to win?
Me?
Yes.
I would have voted for Cassidy. I would have been okay with the Cassidy or an Owen win, to be honest. Either of them I was okay with. But with those three sitting there, I probably would have voted for Cassidy.
Okay.
I'll say Gabler, and the reason is I didn't see it. I didn't see the win, but I think that when you have that much of the jury that votes for him, and obviously we didn't see something.
So you would have gone along with the groupthink then?
Yeah, not from the edit that we saw, but no, I don't think that. I think that the people, when you have people like Noel that were there and strong individual people that can think for themselves, like sure there can be pressure, to go one way. I just don't think that you're going to have that many people have a unanimous vote for someone that in their mind doesn't deserve it. So I think I agree with what Tiffany said. I think honestly Cassidy or Owen would be who I'd vote for based off the edit. But part of it you have to remember is the edit is not reality that is out there. And I think especially in today's modern Survivor, we've had this happen several times where it's you kind of walk away scratching your head, and the answer is that it was the edit that didn't show you what was actually happening. And I think that's the case.
In some cases, in other cases, it's people being human and human behavior cracking under pressure and not wanting to go different. People are herd followers. They follow the herd. And if the herd is going one way, that's the way they're going. Like that. It is just human nature to be like that. That's being in that jury like that. And you have people behind you saying, oh, I'm voting for this person, voting for that person. It's almost like a pressured situation where it's almost like a bullying situation.
Who was the herd follower on our season?
I don't know. Not me. I was fabulous.
Tiffany.
Why was I a herd follower?
Because you voted for the same person everyone else did, except for one.
Yeah, I'll tell you why my reasons are. I knew why I did it. I just don't think everybody else should have done it.
Yeah.
No, and I don't mean that against Erica. I mean it by the game they played. If they were in a certain alliance, then they should have ended up going all the way with it. And if they were not, then that's what happened. And everybody is afraid to say it, but I'm not, because that's the truth. That's what happens out there. Like you see, I voted for the person that I thought played the best social game from my perspective in our season.
My point is that's what you said is very valid. But when you go back and watch our season, you don't necessarily see that from the edit that was given. on terms
Right.
of why
I
you
think
voted for
I
Eric.
think you do. I think you do. I
Not
think
from
you
the
do.
edit.
I disagree.
Absolutely not from the edit.
No,
The edit you do not
what from
understand.
the edit you see why the okay. I'm not saying it the right way. What I'm trying to say to what you're saying, Voce, is in our voting block from the edit, you would have thought that half the people would have voted for maybe Deshaun and the other half would have voted for maybe Erica. And you didn't see that. You saw unanimous Erica, and that didn't work with the edit. That did not work with the edit because the edit was showing that there was a clear alliance and everybody was trying to make that work. It fell apart. And then when it got to jury votes, it was all of a sudden everybody voted Erica. But where was their whole movement in the alliance? And that's what I'm saying. So in our case, our season is not the season to talk about for that because it was a very new season with twists and turns and all kinds of things.
And I think that's the case. I mean, if you look at the last 3 seasons, they've all been heavy majority. And I think you have a couple of stronger personalities, who are guiding it. I also think you have, I mean, Voce, you used Noelle as an example of a strong personality, but she was one of the ones up there going, yeah, you should have made fire.
Right.
And, I mean, I know she's a Survivor fan, but I don't think she's a Survivor podcast listener, Reddit looking.
Yeah, but
fan,
I think for her, like individual things like making fire are important to her because she
but
sees
then
that
what about the 3 challenges? Why were the 3 challenges? I mean, I'm not trying to debate every single person's vote here.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it was interesting how all of a sudden fire making was the most important thing to her when the 3 challenges weren't.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there was, intentional or unintentional. And we did get a question on this. And I didn't think we were going to get to it because we really already covered it in the finale podcast. But we did get a question. Let me see if I can find it here. That, about what we had seen in interviews that,
that is very, very.
It was what?
You're making a lot of sense right now.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry, I'm trying to.
Very Tiffany-like.
Oh God. Caitlin had asked, although Carla had said she did not poison the jury against Cassidy, Cassidy had said in interviews that she was told someone told her that they heard Carla speaking ill of her at Ponderosa. Do we think Carla intentionally attempted to turn the jury, or was she just venting? And do we think it had an effect? And now Jessica and I discussed this at length, so I don't want to go into it too much here. But I do think, one will likely never know what actually happened because it would take some other people from the jury speaking up and saying this is exactly what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not going to do that at this point. 2, what do I think happened? I think there's a long, I said this, earlier in the week, there's a big difference between intentionally poisoning, or there's a big distance between intentionally poisoning the jury and venting and giving your opinions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it probably falls somewhere in the middle there. I think it's clear Carla did not at that point respect Cassidy's game. I think that, Carla said that they had a roundtable discussion about it, and not just about Cassidy's game, about everybody's game. And I think that if you go in, you're going to talk to the people who are most recently off, which you talked about, and the people who played the closest with them. And if one of the most recently off people who played closely with Cassidy says, yeah, she didn't really do much, it's not intentionally poisoning the jury. She's not going in there and saying this is a horrible person or whatever, but it's going to have an impact.
Sure.
And Carla was someone who was respected while she was out there, and I'm sure she was respected in the jury. Mm-hmm. Jesse left the game mad. He was angry, and I don't blame him. But even he said that he only had 24 hours. And this is a problem with the 26-day rush game. He only had 24 hours before he was knocked out of the game and having to pick a winner that wasn't him. And that's hard to do. And so I just think that, yes, there was, I called it groupthink, and I will continue to call it groupthink. I do think you can get to a 7-1 vote and everybody there is certain that they voted the right way. And, I mean, they were there. And so did they vote the right way? They voted the right way for them at that time.
At that moment, right. And that I will agree with that. And remember, it is about that moment, right? It's about that moment. And that's why I think Jeff loves this whole, on the island, exposing the winner right there in the raw. He loves that raw emotion. Well, you're really getting like the actual moment and where everybody's mind is, right? And your mind is not going to be 100%. And if you go home now and think about the vote and think about all the different ways they could do this vote, right? You would never have the same winner, I don't think. So it's really about the moment, about what everybody perception is reality. They love to say it. And that is because that is the whole game of Survivor. What you perceive is your reality at that moment. And so that winner is the winner, fair and square. There's no debating that. Right. It is what it is. You all voted. Here's the winner. No matter how they got there, they won fair and square. I would never debate that. The debate really falls on what is happening throughout the whole game. But it's equally happening throughout the whole game, right? You're being told by one group, this person's bad, this person's bad. And it's not till later on where you all sitting together and you're like, oh my God, that happened. He said that. Or like, she said that. Or like, oh my God, I can't believe they're like that. It's not till later. So you're winning fair and square on the game you played at that moment. But there's nothing really fair about Survivor, right? Because a lot of it, again, is luck and some pushed, a little bit of that pushed twist stuff that they like to make sure it works. Look, we have the shot in the dark. When did that ever really work? Never. Yeah. And, we still had it. And it's like, it's eventually, it's like one of those things where they try something, they try it, doesn't work. Well, one day it's going to work if you keep doing it, but, and that moment is going to be like, see, this is why we did this, this is what it's about, but the rest of us are like, I came home with a dime in my pocket, it's like, but at the end of the day, this is what Survivor is. It's in the moment, raw, not thinking straight emotion. And that's how you get your 7-1 winner when you have a whole bunch of people sitting in a Ponderosa waiting for a final tribal.
Yeah, I said on the Why Blank One podcast, I said every juror has the absolute right to vote the way that they voted, and we have the absolute right to question
hate it,
to analyze it, hate it, whatever. Just to discuss it at least. So, I will move on to the next question, which is kind of part of this, actually. In the new era, should the conventional wisdom now be to vote out the goats? And so let me give my thoughts here, because this question actually, in my opinion, warrants a much larger discussion than we can have right now, especially, how, long we've been taking per question already. But maybe sometime next season, we'll just sit down and we'll be like, okay, let's get some people together and talk about this. But for this moment, what I will say is that I think, as we discussed a little on Why Blank One, the problem is that the threats tend to work together for a little while. And then they look at each other and they say, okay, who's going to turn on who first?
Right.
And then they say, well, I don't want to be the one who gets blindsided and turned on, so I'll be the one that jumps ahead and turns on them first. So they make their move, and then they become a threat, and then they get knocked down, and and it's just a row of dominoes.
Right.
And so the only way I see taking out the goats works is if somehow you got a group of threats together who all agreed, we are all threats. We all think we can win against each other, but we are all big threats. We will go to the end, and we trust each other.
Right.
We trust each other a huge amount. It's just so unlikely in Survivor. Even Jesse and Cody, who were like blood brothers out there.
Yes.
Jesse was like, Cody keeps telling me he's going to take me to the end, but why should I believe him? Who would do that?
Right.
Well, as it turned out, he would have. But I don't see it working, but I know there are some people who do.
Well, because if you said, right, us five, we are going to stick together no matter what. It should be a no-brainer. You should make it to the end, right?
Right.
Minus any of the luck nonsense and the necklace nonsense. But if you have a majority and you stick to those 5 people stick together, like it really shouldn't fall apart for the most part, because one of the 5 of you should win something, and you should be able to just by numbers get there. But nobody ever does it, and it's like the most annoying thing. It's like, even and not to bring it back, but I'm gonna, from our season, myself, Xander, Evie, Liana, Xander's extra vote, and an idol. There's no reason we shouldn't have been further down the line. There is no reason at all. It was just the trust. You think it's going to be better. Grass is always greener on the other side, but you don't know these people as long as you know us. Like, it makes no logical sense, but you always think that you're going to get ahead. And so if those 5 people just stick together, you have everything going into the merge. It's the whole reason we kept you, like that becomes so frustrating for the player, because it seems like such a simple rule to follow, but yet nobody does it.
Right.
And so you have this weird thing of really good players being voted off first, really big personalities going home first, being kind of left over with like some really strong, and then like your regular goatee players. And it's like, then that's what you have, right? So becomes extremely frustrating if, you really want to go out there and play a game with 5 people that you want to be super loyal to through the whole thing, especially in a season where it was like, 3 tribes starting off constantly. Like,
right.
That's difficult too, in and of itself.
Yeah. Voce, did you have anything to add, or we'll move on? Nope. Okay. All right. Ion asked, when I listened to Carla's interview, one reason she voted for Gabler was because he beat Jesse in firemaking. I'm curious whether the votes would have slightly shifted if Cassidy picked Gabler to sit beside her in Final 3, and it was Owen who beat Jesse in firemaking. Do you think the result would still be the same, or would we have seen a Cassidy or Owen victory? And I know we've already covered a lot of this, and I probably should have put this up earlier, but according to the interviews, supposedly, well, I guess according to some of the interviews, supposedly whoever beat Jesse in firemaking would have won the season. But that's really only based on Carla and Jesse's interviews, because we haven't heard from the other jurors and their interpretations of what the jury would have done. Like, some people read into what Jesse said. Jesse said was, the way I saw it, it looked like the jury was going to vote for whoever beat me in firemaking. But that's not him saying he was certain of it. That was his read on the jury at the time.
Right.
So I would like to think that really wouldn't have happened, but I mean, we saw what happened. So it seems pretty clear to me that the jury was against Cassidy no matter who she put into firemaking. Maybe if she had put Owen in, he would have won. Maybe not. I don't know. Considering some of the contradictory statements and the fact that the jury had to reach all the way back to the Ellie vote to find something that Gabler did, I don't know. I think that it just seemed like they had decided the winner and then were looking for reasons. But
I think that's.
But you know what?
I think it goes back to what. Hang on, Tiffany. Shh. I think it goes back to what Tiffany said about like being just naturally nice and people just gravitating towards you. I think the jury liked Gabler. I thought they thought, you know what? Next to the people that are up there, he's going to get my vote, and this is how we're going to justify it. I think that's the order of thoughts. Whether or not they're aware of their bias for that, I think that's ultimately what it came down to, is the people just liked Gabler, and they thought, yes, this is the person I want to vote for. And look at the things that he's done. He's done this. He's done this. He's done this. Yeah, and I think the fact that they're saying I'm voting for
many things that he did, but
but the likability factor is huge.
It is.
If you like someone, you are going to be more desirous of voting for that person than someone that you don't like, and
100%.
so you will be looking for reasons why you want to necessarily support this person over here versus this person over there. And so I can see just by the way the jury was responding to Gabler, and they were laughing, and they were him like almost like high-fiving him while he was speaking, and then they were shutting down when Cassidy was speaking, and that definitely has an air to it, and that can then affect the entire space and the way that Cassidy is going to be perceiving it, and the way that Gabler's being built up. Cassidy's being pushed
Shut down.
down.
Yeah.
So, that's definitely going to affect your ability to answer questions and your desire to want to keep speaking. So all of those things definitely come into play. So if you have a likability component, it's certainly going to help you out. 100%.
Yeah. And I do want to mention, I always say at the early in our podcasts, we want to talk about the first and most important rule, which is to scheme and plot. And now people may be listening and saying, well, wait a minute, you're saying whoever the jury likes more. It's not just whoever the jury likes more, because if Jesse were in the jury, if Jesse were in final three, it wouldn't have mattered. Anybody else could have been there.
Right.
Well, except maybe Cody, but Gabler could have been there, and they wouldn't have said, well, we like Gabler, so we're voting for him. It was the final three who did not have overt moves. They were not known as the strategist. I think Cassidy should have been, but she was not. Owen certainly tried to be, but he was not viewed that way. If Jesse had been there, they wouldn't have said, well, we like Gabler more, and we like Gabler a lot. They were looking for a reason among those three.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Let's take a break here from the super serious questions. Tiffany.
Yes.
Ashley wants to know, who is the Voce of this season?
Oof.
This was one of the questions I was going to send you ahead of time, but
that's a hard one.
Well, you think about that. Voce, she also wants to know who's the Tiffany of the season.
I have an answer for that. Okay, let me think about the Voce. I'm going to say I might say
long silences are not good podcasts.
This is a hard one.
Voce, do you have an answer?
Maybe I'll say James.
Okay.
I would say Noelle, because it's like Tiffany only had one leg when she was out there. But the thing is that Noelle was actually way better than Tiffany.
Noelle made it plus the balance beam.
Listen, I said to Noelle, man, you really she killed it out there. I was like, you made me look really bad. She laughed. She has a great sense of humor, though. Yeah. Noelle, she does. She's great. I'll take Noelle any day.
Yeah. All right. Well, Guapi John, out of you two, Tiffany and Voce, who would be the Gabler and who would be the Ellie?
He's the Ellie.
I'm the Ellie?
I'm the Gabler.
Would you rather be the Gabler?
Yeah, I guess.
Would you rather be the Gabler or the Ellie?
Lose. That's a lose-lose.
I'll be the Gabler.
Going around putting palm fronds on people.
Oh my gosh.
The one thing you can't do is hide in plain sight or otherwise.
No, I'm definitely not a hider, but.
All right. And Anne wants to know, who wins the David Voce pre-jury boot of the season award?
Who wins that? Oh, God.
Apparently, I should have sent these to you ahead of time. These questions.
Jesus. Because I'm not remembering people.
Because they were pre-jury. Uh-oh.
Yes. Yeah. Voce was memorable.
You have a cheat sheet.
Yeah. Can you put that cheat sheet up there real close so I can see? Because I don't have anything else to look at. Who are my pre-jury picks? Who are my pre-jury people? I can't see that. Oh, Gio. I love Gio. I like him. Dwight. Okay.
I have my little doodles on here too.
Let's see Sammy.
Sammy was in the jury. Right?
Yeah. He was on the jury. I love Sammy. Okay, who else?
I feel like we've got with the eyes happening here. We've got some Voce. Look at this.
Yeah, is that Gio?
That's
Gio.
Gio Bustamante.
Gio, Lindsay. Yeah.
You're the Gio.
He's the Gio.
I'm calling you Gio, baby.
No offense, Gio, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure I agree with that.
I think Lindsay is. I think Lindsay.
I could go with that.
Oh, I think that makes sense. Yeah, I think Lindsay definitely, because she just had like, everyone was so up on Lindsay, and then all of a sudden it was like, what just happened?
Yeah. All right, and one more of the less serious. Noah wants to know, Tiffany, what is more difficult, last gasp or the balance beam?
I'm gonna say last gasp is more difficult. The balance beam will be mine in the future. Don't you worry. That was just a bad moment. And by the way, I made
Are
the
you
class.
like taking gymnastics now so you can practice?
Yeah. I'm very. Oh, gosh. I think I just pulled it back.
Trust me. If by some grace of God we're ever out there again, and Tiffany says, "Oh, I can do that," I'll be like, "Absolutely not. Put her in the back. She's not touching anything."
Tiffany, you need to sit down. You're not doing that, sweetheart. It's cute that you think you can do it, but you're not going to do it. That's not for you.
Plus, if you thought she was bad when she went out there, imagine how bad she'll be when she's that old.
What that old? He's really coming for me today. You're nasty today.
Wow.
I mean,
you're nasty today. I'm not liking you today. Yes. Jessica, I don't like him today.
Okay. Well, we're on this side together, so.
Yeah.
Okay, that's why I love you.
And he said that he loves David now, that he's David Bloomberg. He's David Bloomberg.
All I have to tell you is that if I ever do have the pleasure, you go like this. If I ever do have the pleasure of going out there,
me and David,
I will be incredible.
You are incredible already.
I'll be more incredible. More incredible.
All right, moving to that's
a big statement.
This is sort of serious, less serious than some that we've had. Spencer Watson wants to know, and Spencer he has a podcast of his own where he's had me on. We talk about some much deeper concepts, and not Survivor necessarily, just in general. He wants to know, what would it be like if someone had an idol, other people found out about it, so that person made a fake idol, then they burned the fake in a public display at camp to reduce the threat they posed. Now, Jessica, I feel like this is a version of what you wanted James to do with the knowledge of power that he found in the well. Make a big display of getting rid of it. But instead, it adds in, no, you make a fake that you substitute, but you keep the real one.
I think people need to understand this idea of making fake idols is not as easy as it is portrayed. I was collecting a lot of various things when I was out there in hopes of making a fake idol. But I think the one thing that production is very good at is the way that they structure these idols. Some of them look like homemade craft projects on purpose, but you don't necessarily know what they're all going to end up looking like, and people start paying attention. And it can be done. We've seen it done beautifully and impeccably well on certain seasons, but it's not as easy as I think people want to believe it can be, because the parchment becomes a very significant component, and that is not something you can fake, because you're not getting.
But you can burn the parchment.
No.
You can wrap the fake in the real parchment and say, look, here it is, and burn it.
Right. And so I'm just saying, like, you can, so that is a great idea. Like, I think it's certainly something that should be attempted. I think it would be a lot of fun to see, but it is also, you really need to think through it in order to pull it off and make it believable. I think, wasn't there one season where they pretended to throw it in the ocean? Didn't somebody do that?
He really did throw it in the ocean.
He did really throw it in the ocean?
Yeah.
Or, okay, maybe
a lot of people said he should have pretended.
Yes, he should have pretended that he threw it in the ocean. So there are ways that he could do this.
Was that Randy?
I don't even remember. But I do think that would be worth a shot for sure. Yeah.
I don't think.
I also think
everyone knows it would be fake.
Well, I also think that the amount of days, though, like, I think that's the other side of this, is the newer format with the faster format. It's really very hard to get anything done. Like, it was so rapid fire out there that it was every time you turned around, you were like either at a confessional or you were getting like your last bite before you had to go to like another challenge. There was like really no downtime. So like, it would have been really, really difficult to pull off even like thinking about it, let alone having the time to do it and then displaying it, because with all the walks that we had to take and with all the extra adventures that they went on for 3 hours, the amount of time that you're all really together, not in the daylight, let's just say, is not that much. At least it wasn't for us. And so, there wasn't that much time to like do these things that everybody thinks you might have had more time on a little bit of a longer season, but with the 26-day format, it's not the same.
So let me ask you a follow-up or a different related question from Larry. Does having fewer days cause more gameplay or less? Because you vote out someone at Mergatory on like day 14, and then a week later you're at Final 7, when on a normal season, it would only be 2 or 3 tribal councils.
I think less exciting gameplay, because it's almost like you have to do things that are like the obvious, because you don't have time to like be too diabolical. You don't have that time. But if you have a little more time, you could like really, and people start annoying you, and then your plan might change, and then you may get more gameplay. I think it takes away some of the gameplay.
I think also
it
some
forces,
of the social game is lacking.
Yeah. The social game too, 100% is less. Everything is less.
I think the social game is lacking because people don't have the time to actually make the relationships that you need. And I know, Jesse, you can probably talk to this. Old seasons, people talk about, having boring days, where you're just doing nothing. But those boring days don't exist. And I think that on those boring days, that's when you can make relationships with people, as opposed to gameplay twists. Someone's going to this advantage doing this, and there's really no downtime just to kind of, chill and, just be humans together. So
those days that we would not have to do anything, the day after a challenge was so nice, because it was like we would do laundry and we would like hang out at camp, and we would just build social bonds and talk to each other and do things that were not as exciting but were great in regards to the game. And also look for idols and try to become, creative with the different things we're going to do. And so I do think that is definitely, it's sad that you didn't have those experiences, because I do think you're missing out on a lot of great key components of the game that used to exist that just can't in a 26-day game.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I even think that, the last, when they're down to 5 and they move to a new island and they're focused on building all that stuff.
Yeah, that's so dumb.
That's so ridiculous. Don't do that.
Dumb, but then also it's like, well, now you're forcing them to now rebuild shelter, or won't even do that.
They don't even rebuild it. They don't.
But then there's just this focus now on do more instead of focusing on the end game. It's like, okay, here's something new you have to deal with. You have to learn how to, do whatever all over again. It's like, no, but at this point in the game, especially with there's so few days lost, just focus on, the strategy that's left.
Right.
Yeah. All right. My next question comes from my friend and former coworker, Jason.
Hi, Jason.
Idols are quickly becoming more and more a part of the social game, as some advantages either outright encourage it, like knowledge is power, or collecting beads, or saying phrases.
It's a little Christmas.
Jingle.
Or they create circumstances for social maneuvering to be necessary, like, again, knowledge is power or nullifiers. What advice would you give to players as they have to navigate this newish part of the social game? And Tiffany, note he said newish, not Jewish.
I got it. Newish, not Jewish. Okay. It is the fifth night of Hanukkah.
I will reference a rule in this. Keep your idols secret. Know how to deal with advantage.
Yes.
Right?
I agree with you. I think it's too much of this crazy, like, look what I got. Like, shut your mouth and put it away.
That's exactly what my first note is. I mean, first of all, I know what Jason is saying, but Survivor has always been about strategy and socially. So, that's fine. While I do mind the advantages, I don't mind them kind of forcing some social maneuvering. But
don't make them stand on a mat and say, the goat is like eating the grass or whatever the hell that was.
I should have.
Bunnies in a mailbox, whatever.
But yes, the best way is to avoid it. Don't pick up the damned beware advantage.
Yeah.
Don't tell anyone you have an idol or a knowledge is power. Just keep your mouth shut.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that it's frustrating when you are out there, and it's hard enough when you're trying to get pushback from, in the confessionals that are talking to you about these various things. But then to have the advantages being provided in the manner that they are, it takes away the choice of the players, whether or not they want to tell. Like, Tiffany, you've already talked about this, that all of a sudden it was like, I would have kept this a secret, but for the fact that it was put right by the fire. And then suddenly it's not a secret anymore. That's not fair, because that's a choice. That should be a decision by a player, whether or not they want to tell somebody about something. It shouldn't be thrust on them.
And it would have been so much more fun to watch me really have to navigate. Not, besides Xander not knowing, the other two knew and they could cover me in 2 seconds. Right. Versus like, she's not feeling well, versus them all waking up in the middle of the night. Where the hell am I? Right. So it kind of takes away from the fun. Yeah. Which is, and also again, which is the organic play. And you don't get to see that when you have this, that.
Yeah.
Or the questioning during, during confessionals, that make you paranoid and crazy to begin with. So it's just it's a whole different it's a whole different season. These last few seasons were really, really different as far as I'm concerned. And I thought it was hard enough to navigate pandemic and all the other things that we all had to navigate through these last few seasons. But the shorter gameplay, the forced twists, it takes away from the fun of it. And I think you're seeing that now. I think you're starting to now see that. Now that we understand a lot of the newer twists, now you're seeing like, oh, you give the idol to her because they're going to know you have it. And it's like not exciting anymore. It's like, we know what to do with this now. Okay, move on. And they'll just take it away and do something else stupid. Right. So it's a matter of just adjusting and trying to keep it a fun game. Yeah. Hard to do.
Yeah. All right. Here's a deep thought question from Joseph. In early seasons, the series dwelt on pseudo-mysticism around the location they were filming and its strange powers. This wasn't always great and often had notes of, I'm going to try to say this word, making it exotic in a product targeted at American audiences. That discussion was largely abandoned after a while, especially when they moved to Fiji. But since 41, they've been having like these similar discussions about the transformative / magical powers of the show itself. What do you think of the shift from, the earlier seasons to the latest? Voce, what do you think?
I think that it's cool to hear after the fact of how it's changed people's lives, and maybe even in the jury, like and in the final tribal council, being like, oh, it's had this much of an impact. But I personally Survivor definitely changed me. It's changed everyone on the cast says that they came out, a new person. I'm just tired of hearing how it changes, and instead of just like focus on playing the game. And that's kind of the broader, I think it's interesting to hear people's backgrounds and people's stories, but I think when you go back to like Richard Hatch and
it changed his life,
Right? Yeah. Richard Hatch and what was the Navy SEAL that died?
Rudy.
When you go back to them, discussing, his biases towards like the LGBT population or whatever, and Richard Hatch's like background and stuff, you saw him talking about his struggles in life, but in real time. You didn't have like a montage of pictures thrown up talking about it, about their life and what they came through. I'm not all negative on it, but my point is like just have people talk about what's going on in their lives and how their experiences change them, as opposed to having them sit there and say, this experience being on Survivor has already changed me because of this. You know what I'm saying? Like, just show the audience. Don't like throw it down their throat. That's my opinion.
Yeah. No, it's more of like an after school special when you start doing these types of things. I appreciate who these people are and where they've come from, but I do miss the old school component of Survivor when it was just that rawness, that newness. It was always exciting to see where's the next season going to be, because we weren't familiar with it. And so the viewers were learning at the same time that the players were learning. Now, we all know those islands. I watched, Survivor now, and I'm like, I know where that is. I know where that is. It's getting too repetitive, and there's so much knowledge that players are gaining before they even go out into the island that it's almost unfair in a way. Like, I didn't know I was going to Fiji, and we were the first ones that went out to Fiji, and that was really incredible because it was so new. Now it's like, oh, yeah, there's that island again. Oh, look, that's the same pedestal that they use in the challenge.
Yeah, it's the weirdest thing.
Yeah,
well, and it's kind of like where you're saying where Cody jumped off those rocks. We already saw some guy in 44 preview, jumping off and falling off the rocks.
That's where Voce and I would make poo-poo.
Yeah, so it's like not just because we're out there, but I think everyone's recognizing it, and so it does take away some of the charm.
That's the real injury. That's what he slipped on.
Our poo-poo.
Well,
That was our
how
poo-poo
much-
hole.
Honestly, like how much human
Poo-poo.
defecation is on that island
Well,
at this
actually-
You know what I
Actually-
like? I like how everybody's fishing afterwards. You know those fish are eating our poo-poo, and then you're eating that fish. Gross.
Well, no,
Yeah, well.
crazy story. I think Tiffany, you were there when this happened, but we were out just on the beach and like waiting maybe 1 or 2 feet, and like we reached down, and I think it was Xander that reached down in the water and picked up a old iPhone, and the producer that was with us was like, "Oh my god, that's my iPhone I lost 2 years ago filming here." She grabs it and they took it, and it was her actual
crazy.
iPhone from like 3
That's
years
funny.
previous.
Oh my
that had
god!
just like
Well,
washed up
didn't
on the
wait,
shore
didn't
from that beach.
didn't David
Yeah.
Wright, or was it David Wright who like went and visited on a
And buried an
vacation
idol.
and buried a fake idol
Yes,
somewhere?
this is what I'm saying. Like you're definitely able to mess with players in a
And
way
it was
that
there
you've
when he
never
was
been
on
able to
Edge,
before.
right?
Yeah.
Wasn't it?
Was
wasn't
it?
it? So
I
I think he talks about the
know.
idol. Like he actually found it when he was on Edge of Extinction.
Oh, okay.
So yeah,
But
I don't
the-
love
I
this
I don't
approach.
mind that aspect of it. It's like anything else. If you know you're going to Fiji, study up on Fiji. Everybody
Well,
knows.
okay, and
It's equal.
that's okay, but think about like a game show, right? Where it's like these, like I'm thinking The Price is Right, when
Mm-hmm.
the same types of challenges are being utilized, just like the same types of games are being used in Price is Right, and people study up on those games. And it happened in your season, right, with Ellie, where she knew how to solve the puzzle because she had seen it and she had studied it, and so she was able to do it like this. That to me, great for Ellie that she was able to do that, but
Oh, you mean
shouldn't
Evie?
be able
Evie.
to do that.
Evie.
Oh, Evie. It's Ellie is this season.
Yes.
Evie was that.
Evie was our season. Yeah,
so many names. But it's one of those things where like you shouldn't be able to do that. It's
Right.
awesome
I agree
that
with you.
figured it out, but you shouldn't be able to. You shouldn't have that built-in added bonus.
Knowledge.
You're like, I'm going to
I
study
mean,
up.
I mean, Price is Right. When I went to Price is Right, I had a sheet printed out.
Of
with-
course you did, but that's
and so did other people in the audience.
This is not a game show.
Well, it is a game show. I mean, it goes all the way back to Colleen. Colleen had a dream in season 1, and she said, "On my dream, I was on a game show," and then she woke up and said, "Oh my God, I am on a game show," And so, I mean, getting back to that Joseph's original question, it is. I do think. I mean, this podcast obviously talks about. We say it at the beginning, excuse me, of every season. The rules are how to win, not how to have a transformative experience, not how to realize the meaning of life. Not
Those are just the extras.
Yeah, if that happens to you,
Great.
But I mean, and yes, to me, it is interesting to hear. It is good to hear where people came from. It would be better if it weren't just thrown at us in a condensed package. But however we get it, at least we get to know those people a little bit better, which is better than, more recently when we didn't know them at all.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, to me, the whole transformative magical powers, I will disagree with Joseph a little bit. I think that that's been going on since the beginning. I think that there have been people coming in from the very early stages saying, I want to come here to create a commune. I want to come here to change who I am. And that's why I put that in the rules at the top way early on, was because there were those people, and Big Wendy came into Free Chickens. Great, Big Wendy, good for you. But that's, I'm sorry, we're going to rake you over the coals when we talk about the rules. And, so yeah, everyone can have their reasons for going out there. And if it transforms them, great. But I'm sure the show always wants a couple people like that.
Yeah.
It's just not why I watch.
Right. Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of other places you can go to have transformative experiences if you really want
Or
that.
a lot of other drugs you can take.
And
Not
you can
the
also
worst.
eat, and you can also eat in those places. So that's cool.
That's part of the
And you can sleep in a
transformation.
bed in those places.
Sign me up.
That's part of the transformation is
Have
losing
toilet
like 20,
paper.
20 pounds.
Oh,
you know.
it's incredible, right?
They have all these cool things like beds.
Amenities.
Yeah. So let's do just one or two more questions here. I have one more from Jason. Carla and Cassidy's betrayal was a slow burn, while Cody and Jesse's was one and done. Cody forgave Jesse immediately, while Carla spent the last few days bickering with Cassidy. During a betrayal, is it best to get that person out immediately? And if the betrayed is still there, how can that relationship be recovered? So let me just throw my 2 cents in there. I think, yes, if you're going to betray someone, do it and be done with it, or at least try. The thing is, Carla tried and was foiled. You know, it wasn't like she intended this to drag out. She wanted Cassidy gone. It just wasn't the plan of everybody else. She then pulled out the tears and thought she'd done a good job of acting. Cassidy clearly wasn't buying it. But then Carla wasn't buying it when Cassidy said they were okay. So there was a lot of tension going on. In those cases, I don't think the relationship can be recovered. It depends on the people. For those two, they worked together for so long, it clearly could not be. But yes, I think it should be a quick cut. If you can do it.
Tiffany knows about quick cuts, right, Voce?
Yeah, that's right. I'm a quick cutter. One and done. One and done. You gotta sever that artery.
No, I do think that there's an interesting point to be made here, though, is that if there is a move that can be made in this type of game, you have to make it when you can make it. The longer you let it drag out, the more difficult it becomes to make. And so if you can get people on the bus to go that direction and agree with you, you just have to do it. And then you got to deal with the consequences later, because otherwise, if you don't make it happen, maybe that person finds out that you were talking about it, and then maybe things start to spiral, and then other discussions are being had. Whereas if you just do it and then deal with the ramifications of it, I think it's better for your long-term game, because then you're not dealing with the potential consequences of not being able to pull it off later, like we saw with Carla.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. And I can't remember the exact situations, but I remember Tony in Winners at War, there were several times where, an hour or two before tribal council, he was just going after grabbing the votes, and then making it happen. And it's like, that's the, the whole blind side is that, you get them out so they don't know about it. But, I think that type of, just getting the votes and cutting them is what you have to do. Otherwise, if they know you're coming for you, well, then that relationship is over.
You're done.
I think
then
that's why
you.
Cassidy and Carla had the issues, is because it wasn't it was a bleeding artery that just wasn't severed.
All right, let's do some rapid fire here. Giovanni asked a series of questions, but a couple of them are going to take way too long. Sorry, Giovanni. Where does Gabler rank as a winner? The big eyes of Jessica lighting up there, or just widening. I will go first and say not very high. Anyone want to disagree with that?
I think Voce wanted to disagree.
No, I think it's just it's unfortunate. I agree with you in saying that it's towards the bottom, but I think it's unfortunate because I think that we have so little to go off of based off of why the jury, understanding. We weren't shown why he won, in my opinion. And
I think that's a fair point, because I do think that the editing is doing a disservice to players when they are not giving them credit for what they do, or they are building people up for credit they don't deserve. I think we saw the same thing happen.
That's a bigger one.
Yeah.
That's what they do more of. They build you up undeservingly.
Xander was someone who I think a lot of people were watching, expecting to do phenomenal things after Final Tribal. And then we found out later that all of the jury was like, we all wanted to sit next to him because he wasn't going to win. Yeah. And that was not what was being portrayed to us. And so I do think that the editing did a disservice to Gabler because we didn't get to see everything. And it did a disservice to Cassidy because it did build her up. And so you get this story that doesn't make any sense, and then you have people questioning it. So I do think that he's on the lower end of the winners, because I do think there's a mass confusion as to how we even got here, even though we did like a 3-hour podcast on it.
Yes. Yeah. And that explains everything. Anyone who wants to know why he won, that does explain it all as far as we can tell. But all right. Eric asked, he asked a longer question, but one thing it comes down to, there was the whole situation of Cassidy versus Gio and Ryan. And then it seemed like Cassidy was almost paranoid enough to be voted out like Lindsay. Did that contribute to Carla's perception of Cassidy in the game? My answer on that is no. They continued working together for a long time after that. I don't think Cassidy was that paranoid. I think that was a production manufacturing situation. I think we saw some things and heard some things about why Cassidy didn't get along with those two. And there were very different ways of looking at the game. Cassidy, why blank lost fan. Gio and Ryan, fishing fans. So, yeah. I don't know if anyone has anything to add, or else we'll quickly move on to the next one.
Next.
I think you nailed it.
Okay. Sean noticed all 3 seasons post Winners at War, the winner came from the tribe that had to vote out the fewest amount of players. Do we think it's luck, or does the format of the new era make it even more a necessity to be the strongest tribe pre-merge? I don't,
Tiffany.
I think it's partial. I think it's luck personally, because that Erica tribe was,
stacked.
That Erica tribe was trying to get her out, but they kept winning even when they tried not to win. So yes, there was, from her perspective, it was important to keep winning. From Gabler's perspective, he wanted Ellie out whenever. So he wasn't ever going out. So it didn't matter to him. And I think same Marianne, if she had gone out sooner, or if they had lost again sooner, maybe. Although didn't they go in 4-4-4? Didn't 42 go in?
They did.
42 went in 4-4-4 split.
Yeah. So I guess that one. Okay, there's a slight correction to Sean's question there, but it's still technically correct because they all had the same number. So, I think there's always pluses and minuses. I think you can come in as a smaller tribe
and be eaten up by another larger group.
Yeah, or wedge your way in.
Right.
It just depends.
Picked up. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, this one, I don't know that you guys are going to, that Tiffany or Voce are going to be able to answer this. Jessica, it's going to test your memory. So Miriam said, Gabler's win reminds me a little bit of the winner of Survivor South Africa, Philippines. And spoiler alert, that was Tom. She believed both got similar edits. Now, I did think of Tom. I don't think they were as similar as maybe some people thought, because like in some ways they were the opposite. Gabler got a weird edit because, he was weird, but he wasn't like pissing people off in the social game. Tom in Survivor South Africa was pissing people off.
Yeah.
But then he did a really good job in Final Tribal Council, and it was only, I believe, a final 2.
It was a final 2, because wasn't that like the 12-hour challenge? Am I thinking of the right one?
You might have, yeah.
Yeah, so like, and it was, and he and the other person were like on the buoys for like, it was like 12 hours or something.
On the stump.
And then he ended up quitting because he wanted to be remembered as making the right decision. The other person, it was all kind of craziness. And then, so I believe it was a final 2. So I think in that regard, I think he probably walked into it with a better ability to speak his case, because he only had one person to speak against, right? We also didn't have firemaking that was going to be working against us as well. I do think that they can be similar.
Is Survivor South Africa, Tom, not
Palau. Not Palau.
Okay, then maybe I'm just remembering the completely wrong
Different
one.
I think you're talking about Ian and Tom.
Yeah, maybe that's who I'm thinking of.
Yeah, wrong.
Okay, then never mind.
Yeah, I had to dig in. I had to dig up my notes for why Tom won. And that was one of the ones we did, Jessica, where we were both like,
Then I
you
still
know,
don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that there could be some similarities said because nobody expected either of them to win. But and therefore they were not seen as threats to bring to the end. But other than that, I think Tom was really not
I'm
liked
gonna
at
Google him
all.
now so I can try to remember.
And well, good luck on that. Because
I just need a picture.
Yeah. I don't know if either of you two, Voce or Tiffany, watched that. No. Okay.
Palau?
I've only seen one episode.
No, not Palau. This is
I
Survivor.
definitely watched it.
South
I definitely
Africa,
don't remember it.
South
I
Africa.
No,
remember
you
them
didn't.
on a
Tiffany, you've
buoy
never
for
watched
hours,
South
but
Africa.
I
Tiffany,
think I'm on
you've never
Palau.
watched
I
South
watched
Africa.
every season.
No.
I
South
watched
You've
every
not
African
watched
season.
South
Survivor.
Africa. Not
can't hear
U.S.
you.
Survivor. Not
Oh,
U.S.
South
Survivor.
Africa. South
Oh
Africa.
my goodness.
Okay,
I was
never
thinking.
mind.
I was thinking that they were. Forget it. I was
Yes.
thinking it was like a different location.
U.S. has
Okay.
never gone to South Africa.
South
for
Africa.
Survivor.
Never.
Welcome to Survivor.
Welcome to Survivor US. Okay, why are we talking
Okay.
about South Africa?
Well,
Forget it.
because someone asked. That's why. And there are comparisons.
idea.
I mean, we compared.
I've watched
Jessica
Australia.
and
Go
I.
ahead.
Yeah, Jessica and I compared to an Australian Survivor winner who also went through the whole game, not appearing to do a whole lot, and then stood up in final tribal council, went, I did everything, much like Gabler did. Now,
Are you talking about Christine? Or
Yeah, Christy.
Christy, yeah.
Kirsty.
You're right, Christy.
Yeah. Yes. Who, now the difference there was she was up against a guy who most of the jury really did not like. So
but also I'll say her final tribal council, and maybe that was just really good editing for them. Her final tribal council is one of the best final tribal councils in the history of Survivor
was super
International.
convincing.
And
whether
and
it
she
was
this goes back to the point that I was talking about Jessica about your 100% or 100,000%.
100,000%
wrong about having people see, because I do think Christy in that instance was able to really kind of portray this image of what she had done during the season, where everyone is thinking like, yeah, she deserves this. Wow, she's owning her game and what she did. Whereas if you had seen her, if the jury had seen all of everything she did, they may have been like, oh yeah, sure, you're saying that, but we saw what you really did. Right. So I think that's a great example of where she just said, no, this is what I did. And that final tribal council, we didn't hear that from Gabler. We weren't shown it. He did not have, I don't think anyone will ever cite his final tribal council as being an amazing final tribal council.
Right. And from what we heard from Cassidy and Owen, at least, I don't know if we heard it from Carla and Jesse too, was he went on and on and
I
on
heard that.
and he was meandering and he was going on and Jeff was trying to wrangle him back. So I'm sure they had to do a lot of editing to get down even to the points that he made.
Right.
So, all right. Final question. Andy wants to know, what are your initial thoughts about the preview for season 44? And we'll start with Voce.
I can't wait.
Okay, I guess we won't start with Voce.
I can't wait. Tiffany can't wait.
I'm excited.
It looks like
the preview looks amazing.
Plus.
The personalities look like they stand out like they're just jumping off the screen. I think it looks like casting gold. I will say, like, I actually know some of them, and so I just, from the personalities that I know, I think that it will be an entertaining season.
Me too.
Listen. Okay. When they open up with rocks, I had a little bit of a moment. Someone celebrating rocks in that way, rubbing them on their body.
I know, she's rubbing the rock all over. I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah, like, no, we don't appreciate rocks like that.
I was rubbing balance beams all over me. I was rubbing myself all over a balance beam. Nobody said anything about that.
Here's the difference. When that
don't
girl
even
in the 44 preview did it was like, okay, that looks fun. She looks cool. When Tiffany was doing it, it was like horror movie, being like, oh God, put the rock down. Remember her with the rocks with her hair and everything, pulling it out.
So mean. I'll never forgive them for that. But whatever, it's fine.
Don't you think that the girl that was holding the rock looks exactly like Tiffany?
What?
I don't think so.
Move on.
Carolyn?
Move on.
Anyway. I hate you tonight, and I'm not talking to you after this podcast.
Don't
Jess,
say you
I'll
hate
talk to
David.
you.
That's not very nice.
Okay.
You
Well,
were
Rhode
really
Send me your
nasty.
address.
Jess said,
Send me your
Jess
address.
said you were nasty as hell tonight. You were nasty. You brought your
Who?
nasty,
I didn't
nasty
say
side out.
this.
Yes, you did.
I
You
mean,
told me
he
before
did
you
tell
went.
me. I will
He's
say I was
nasty.
100,000% wrong, but then another time I was only 100% right. So it's not an even
So
scale.
you're still
as
more
far as-
wrong. You're
Yeah,
still
you're
more
still,
wrong.
yes,
All
right. So
yeah,
Voce does
you're-
not.
yeah.
He doesn't make things even.
Listen, the bottom line is Voce only knows the part of the game where he saw me mess up, but he didn't see all the amazing shit that I did. And so he can't speak
We
to the
saw
rest
it,
of my
Tiffany.
game. Thank
We
you,
saw it.
Jess. You saw me be like a challenge beast.
Challenge beast. Yes.
Yes.
I
Yeah,
saw
When I
you
think of
attack
challenge,
that bug.
Those
when
balls
you
I got up
survey
all by myself.
when you survey
all by
Survivor
myself.
fans and
All
you
by
ask them, who do you
myself.
think of Challenge Beast? There's Joe Anglem, there's Terry Dietz, and then there's Tiffany Seely.
That's right.
That's the Challenge Beast mountain.
That's right.
Yep.
Make sure you go make that go viral.
Yeah.
Tiffany Seely, balance beam, baby.
Beast.
Balance beam, baby.
Lordy.
Listen,
Cheese
I was
and
the
rice.
beast. I was the beast post balance beam.
Yes, you were much better.
I didn't want to be a
post-balance.
threat. Okay, it was part of my.
That's right.
whole-
You
It was
downplayed
part
your
of her
threat level.
allure.
Yes.
That's exact. Listen, I knew what I was doing. I was like, make a fool of yourself right now, and then nobody will worry about you, and then you're gonna kick ass the rest of the
Yeah.
challenges, and then you're a superhero.
Yes.
It's not my fault you decided not to do that.
All right. Well,
Just saying.
on that note, looking ahead and looking behind a little bit, let me remind everyone that the rules are available on the poster, which eventually will get to Tiffany. And
I need it.
in t-shirt form and in checklist t-shirt form, again at robhasawebsite.com/yxlostfeed. Also want to encourage everyone to check out the RHAP patron program at robhasawebsite.com/patron. I think there's one more Survivor Academy podcast coming. There's also the weekly patron 5 for 5 and more. And of course, when Rob isn't talking directly to everyone, there's the Facebook groups and Discord to keep you occupied with a great community of people, including both of us. Owen was there. Omer was there. Zach was there. There were all these players who have been there even before they got on. Again, I'm not guaranteeing that if you become a patron that you'll get onto the show. I'm just saying it happens.
It does happen. And so you should definitely join. And you should also follow myself, Jessica Lewis 89 on Twitter. And he is at David Bloomberg. And Tiffany, what is your
At Tiffany Seely?
okay? And at David J. Voce. Is that Instagram or is that
Instagram? Only
Instagram? He's an Insta person. I have Instagram as well, at Jessica Lewis 6789. David Bloomberg has everything under the sun. If you want to give him your little checklist of things so they can find David Bloomberg.
I was trying to do it, but I accidentally clicked the wrong thing. It's at Linktree /David Bloomberg, except there's a dot before the EE. Linktree.ee. Don't ask me why. It's just the way they do things.
And his TikTok link is there as well, which is at David_Bloomberg. And you should definitely check him out on TikTok. He reposts his TikToks both on Instagram and on Twitter. But please follow him. He posts multiple.
Are we giving our Hinge profiles too?
What's Hinge?
Amazing.
Hinge? No, my OnlyFans is. I'm just kidding.
There we go. There's the Linktree.
With that note.
Yeah, I don't have one for OnlyFans on there.
Oh, you know you have
you.
one, Bloomberg. Don't you? Bloomberg.
No.
There is a market for
for hot women in their 40s.
No, not for you.
All right. Everyone should also make sure you're subscribed to all of the RHAP Survivor podcasts by going to our YX Lost feed page. You'll find great content like the Know-It-Alls, the Stock Watch, Survivor International, the B&B, and much more. Of course, we will, there won't be a whole lot between now and for the next, month or so, but we will be right back here, at least two of us, around.
Wait, does that mean we're not
mid-February.
invited anymore? What the
Well,
hell?
we'll
Bloomberg.
see. Not to the preview shows.
At least
Oh
I just
my
two of
mentioned it
us.
first.
Oh my goodness.
So we will. Jessica and I will start the preview podcast for Survivor 44, which
Are you
I
guys
believe
excited?
starts. Yes,
Yeah.
I believe starts March 1, and so we'll probably be back around, like I said, around mid-February for that. Also, in other podcast news, I mentioned the podcast I am doing occasionally with Spencer Watson. The podcast is called Truth Unrestricted. There's another one coming up in a week or so. Topic is on confidence, which had a little overlap into Survivor, poker, science, politics, con games, and more. So, be sure to check that out on your podcasting app or wherever you want to go.
Can I say thank you now?
You can always say thank you.
All right. I would like to thank Scott St. Pierre for all of the editing that he does, not only for the Why Blank Lost podcast, but all of the podcasts that you listen to on the RHAP feed. So thank you so much for all of the work that you do, Scott. And thank you to Will from America for the theme song that you created for us. It is lovely, catchy, and we enjoy it thoroughly. And I would like to say thank you to Tiffany and Voce, even though I was 100,000% wrong, Voce. I still appreciate you being here with us. Tiffany, you're lovely as always. The balance beam will never grow old.
It'll never
Voce,
grow
we
old.
love you too. And thank you both for joining us. David, thank you for allowing them to join us, because I do know that it's a different world for David
Oh, it's a
Bloomberg when
different
you
world.
both
It's fun.
join us. It's
Poor
a
Bloomberg.
hard
It's a
thing for
better
him
world.
to do.
Oh, it's fine. We don't have rules to follow,
Oh, and I love that. That is so nice. It's refreshing.
Yes.
I don't get
So-
yelled at for being out of order.
Yeah. So, and yes, thank you, Jessica, for the whole season. Thank you, Voce and Tiffany. And for everybody else, once again, happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, have a good weekend. Whatever it is you celebrate, I hope you have a good one. And we will see you soon.
Thank you for
Bye,
listening.
everyone.
Thank you for
Bye,
having
guys.
us.
Bye.